Okay. Welcome back to another episode of A Dose of Reality. We're back in the building.
We are back.
It's been a little minute.
Just a little one.
Just a little bit.
It's a little one.
But we're here.
Always here.
We'll always be here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're back.
But yeah, we have a lot to catch up on. It's been a little crazy.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Did you see the US election?
I did. I saw the jubilant Trump supporters looking very, very happy. And the anti-Trumps or the Democrat supporters looking very unhappy. They was distraught.
They was really
breaking all the way down.
They was down.
Yeah.
Down in the dumps.
Yeah, they were.
But we have to get into it. We're going to talk about Trump. First of all, this whole election period has been something anyway, going all the way back to even Biden's presidency.
Yeah. It's been a wild one. It's been a mad one. It's been very entertaining. I said the Democrats should be worried from the time Biden was tripping up those stairs on his way into the airplane. He was falling over several times. I said, yeah, you guys might have a problem getting reelected because the leader of the so-called New Babylon tripping that many times in a row upwards.
It's not a good look. It's not a great look.
Wasn't a good look at all. So it was no surprise when Biden pulled out of this particular race. He had been stumbling his way through speeches for quite some time. He was struggling to get his words out. He was walking off the stage in the wrong direction. It was a mess. It was no surprise when he pulled out. I want to see how he's talking now that it's all said and done, whether his cognitive abilities are going to suddenly return and he can flow again. But
it already has. I saw a speech by him recently talking about the transfer of power and everything. He was fully coherent.
Yeah,
my guy was faking it.
It's all a play act. I'm telling you, the decision to put Trump in was made above their heads, and Biden was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll play along.
I'll do it.
I'll do it
for us."
Yeah.
But we even got to get into that whole conversation because obviously a lot of people are dejected.
They are.
A lot of our people are dejected.
They are.
But we'll probably save that for another time. But we got to get into the left wing, right wing, same bird.
Yeah.
And what politics truly represents, what's really going on.
Yeah. We'll have to break that all the way down. Yeah. But yeah, definitely another time because that's some detailed stuff. But this particular election was interesting. Even when you looked at Trump, man, how many times did they apparently try and take his life? There was at least 2, if not 3, assassination attempts, because there was 2 that we know in terms of the first one, which was highly suspicious because my man got onto the roof with an apparent clear line of sight to Trump. How'd he get there in the first place? And then how'd he miss?
Yeah.
Because there were several shots that went off.
You get into that position, you're not missing.
You're not supposed to miss.
You're not missing.
You take out who you're supposed to take out. Then we had another one, I think, while Trump was playing golf. Can't interrupt a man playing golf.
Oh yeah, I didn't even. That's somewhere in the depths of my memory.
Yeah, they caught that guy before. I think he was in the bushes. He's in the bushes hiding out, waiting for his moment, and they got him. And then I think a new one even came out more recently, and a plot to something to do with Iran. There was a plot there as well. Someone trying to take him out. So.
Oh yeah, I think you sent me that link.
Yeah. So. Various apparent attempts at his life that I'm not convinced of at all in the slightest, all leading up to his battle against Kamala Harris, who has got some African blood in the distance.
She gave it her best shot. She blackfished the hell out of it.
Yeah. She called on that on inner genetics somewhere in the depths. There's some African in her. She called on that in attempt to win this battle, apparently. And so it was an entertaining battle. But one thing that Baba Yaanuwn has told us is that, Trump will serve a second term, will get elected again and has a job to do. And so it was interesting watching it all play out because I was watching like, oh, this is. I remember when Kamala first arrived, they was like, yo, she's winning. They had a debate. And Kamala apparently won the debate. I didn't see the debate.
Oh, yeah, I saw clips.
Yeah, but apparently she won. And that's what everyone was saying, that she wiped the floor with Trump and da-da-da-da. And it was like, not sure about this. Certain predictions have to come true.
They just have to.
And Trump being re-elected is one of them.
It makes none of us particularly happy, but prophecy is prophecy.
Prophecy is prophecy. And what will happen, what's meant to happen, will happen.
Yeah, so we got to get into this dude, Trump. Side note, since Trump got elected, I even forgot Biden's still president. I was like, where is that guy? But then he popped up.
Yeah, with a speech. Talk about, transfer of power will be smooth. Yeah. Trump's feeling himself right now.
He's feeling himself, the man of the moment.
He is the man of the moment. He's like, yeah, I'm that guy, you know. Yeah, he's got a right to. He's president again. He's got a right to feel himself. They won.
It's kind of wild. Yeah, Drew. It's kind of wild to look back and see, like, this guy, how he's made these steps, and, how such a spotlight is on him now. Way back, I just knew him as the guy who made the cameo in Home Alone 2. Yeah. Home Alone 2. And the guy who does the American version of The Apprentice.
Right. Yeah, he was that guy. But, when you go back to some of Bubba's books from back in the day, Leviathan, the Antichrist, the Beast and the Antichrist, that series, we can pop up a picture of the book covers for those books. And you're going back early 90s, maybe even before.
Yeah, when you talk about the original version.
Yeah. Quite some time ago. So, and Baba Yaanuwn has explained that the face on the front cover at the front of that book is Trump's.
Yeah.
And so he was breaking down the beast, the Antichrist, Leviathan, all of these things. He's been breaking it down for quite some time. And so he always knew and taught us in a number of different ways about what is happening right now. So Trump, even when he was in Home Alone, making his little appearance, even when he was doing Apprentice, whatever, he was still Trump. He was still that guy. He was still that guy.
He was still that guy.
It's
crazy because I remember seeing that Leviathan book growing up, and I was like, I always used to think, who is that guy in the middle? That big head, blonde hair. If you see the picture, but it's deep when you go back.
Go back and read. You
see the pieces of the puzzle that Bubba has left. So, upon Trump's election and everything we've been talking about the past few years, we had to do a deep dive. We had to go back, and even more pieces were coming together when we, looked at updates and read stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's all there.
It's all there.
It's all there. Trust me, Baba Yaanuwn has given this all to us, and so you cannot ignore it. When you go back, you're gonna find various updates, books, passages where Baba's like, and this part, and and this part. You apply it to right now, and you have the picture.
The full picture. So I want to talk about Trump. I kind of want to approach it from a more religious aspect. Because when in certain corners of the internet and with everything going on, when people speak on Trump, there are a lot of people who are like, this is prophecy. He was chosen to do this. He was chosen by God. Chosen by God.
That's an interesting line.
So I wanted to take a dive into that because us knowing what we know as civilians, there's perspective to that. Right. But I want to get to, was he chosen by God? And who is God in this context?
Well, that is the question. That second question is the important question. If you're going to ask the question, was he chosen by God, or was Trump chosen by God, or make the statement that Trump was chosen by God, then the obvious question after that to anyone who's raised to any level at all, and obviously you have those of us who have been raised by Baba Yaanuwn, who of course will look at that question in a certain context. And on the other side, you might have those of you who are in a religious mindset and see God as this make-believe, omnipresent being who's also in the sky, who's all-powerful, but apparently needs to anoint individuals on the planet to do his work, instead of simply snapping his fingers and it being done. But to be honest, to be raised to the point where you understand religion or have some understanding of what the true purpose of religion is, it doesn't take much these days. It's a Google search away. Google search it. So it's ironic when you talk about God, and the last video that we put out some minutes back,
just a little
while ago, we spoke about Noah's Ark, right? The story of Noah's Ark. It's ironic because the whole point of that video was to explain the reality of the biblical stories and characters. The biblical stories and characters all trace back, or many of them trace back to Sumerian tablets, right? These are Sumerian stories that have been rewritten. So when we spoke of Noah, God, the ark, and the flood being a copy and paste story of Noah being Zeusudra from Sumerian scriptures, God really being the Annunaki, if we want to get specific, Enki of the Annunaki, who was the one who warned Zeusudra about the incoming flood, the flood being the flood, the ark being the ark or some construction to survive the flood, right? The whole point of making that comparison and explaining that it's a copy and paste job was that you need to gain understanding that if you're in the Christian religion, you're a Sumerian in disguise. A lot of these stories and characters, including God, are really Sumerian stories or Sumerian characters. And that's why Noah's Ark isn't the only story you're going to find which has similarities to Sumerian scriptures. You can speak about the creation of man himself, where in the Anunnaki created man out of clay to at best be workers, at worst be slaves, right? In the Bible, God created Adam out of the dust of the ground. And interestingly enough, that quote in the Bible in Genesis, where he tells Adam to go forth from the garden and till the ground, we've explained that word till in Hebrew was abad, which means slave. So it made it into the actual purpose of man made it into the Bible. We can speak about the story of the Garden of Eden, right? Which seems to have similarities to a place called Dilmun in Sumerian scriptures, which is a place of eternal life with forbidden fruit or forbidden plants, which are consumed and then punishment ensues upon that consumption. Same story, right? We can talk about the story of the Tower of Babel, right? Which we've broken down before on this channel and explained how that ties into the Anunnaki, right? So the point I'm making, and the ziggurats of Sumeria. So the point I'm making is that the God, or gods, because it should be plural, as we've also broken down before as well, the gods of the Bible are the Anunnaki, the Sumerian deities or the Sumerian extraterrestrials responsible for that particular scripture or that particular series of tablets, right? And so if you are in the Christian religion, you are in fact a Sumerian in disguise. If you're in any of the religions of Abrahamic nature, the three modern day religions, because although they're considered different, they all worship the same God. You just don't know it, right? That all of those three religions tie all the way back into Sumerian culture. So, in pertaining to the question, right? Was Trump chosen by God? Once we establish that God is the Anunnaki, now we need to get more specific, because the Anunnaki is a group of beings, right? Anunnaki means those sent to earth by Anu, or those sent from the sky to earth, or so on and so forth. And so we know this is multiple beings. This is just describing, that name is just describing a group of beings. So we have to understand the actual lineage in specific of the Anunnaki and understand, okay, if we say Trump was chosen by God and us Sabaeans know that he was chosen by God, right? Who is this God? Interestingly enough, before we speak on that, you're absolutely correct. There is a religious context to Trump's campaign or Trump's campaigns, because obviously he's run multiple campaigns.
Yeah, if you watch his interviews, he speaks about religion a lot.
He speaks about religion. He speaks about God a lot. He done an interview recently with Paula White, right? Paula White is a figure over there, religious figure over there. I think she describes herself as a spiritual advisor to Trump, if that makes sense. They done an interview recently. When I say recently, before his re-election. And Paula White is one of a few religious or evangelist type characters who have spoken about Trump being chosen by God. She's quoted as saying, yeah, his choosing is divine in nature. I'm sure she's quoted as saying, if you oppose Trump, you're opposing God's will. If you oppose Trump, and she's declared, yeah, he's been chosen, and she's not the only one who's declared that he's been chosen by God. So this is you're absolutely correct. This is a statement that you can find. A running theme. And Trump has always had a religious context to his campaigns. If you listen to what he's saying, he's quoted as, I'm here to represent Christians better than they've ever been represented before. You know, he goes over with it. It's like everything he does is the best it's ever been done. I'm going to do things that's never been seen before. I'm going to represent Christians. We don't worship government. We worship God. So he's always spoken. Go through his a lot of his interviews and listen for what he's actually saying and read between the lines. And if you're knowledgeable, you'll say, oh, even Trump's been saying certain things for a while, right? So coming back to what we're saying, the question becomes, okay, if we know Anunnaki, that the Anunnaki are the gods of the Bible, which specific member of the Anunnaki
are we talking
about here? And that becomes the obvious question. And the answer, obviously, as we know as Sabaeans, I say obviously, if you don't know, you don't know. But the answer is a being called Nannar. Okay, and Nannar is the being who has chosen Trump to do his works, right? So in that context, if you ask me the question, once you've broken down who God is, was Trump chosen by God? Yes, he was. He was chosen by God, or he was chosen by this specific being who has presented himself as God to do a specific job. And there we have some type of answer to that question, which we need to dive into. I mean, we've seen the update.
Yeah, I was just about to get to it because you speak of him being called to do a specific job. So when we were doing our deep dive for the updates, we collated one where Robert just breaks it down. So I'll just read it and then we can talk about it. So regarding Trump, Baba said he would be the last US president, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Let's pin that.
Let's pin
that for later.
Come back in a few years.
Also said he would serve 2 terms and that Sin, Nannar, chose him to build the temple in Jerusalem dedicated to Tammuz, giving him 7 years to complete it.
Right. So we need to go over that specific update and break it down. He says there, Nannar or Sin. Nannar's got several different tones. Nannar, Zion, Zuen, Suen, and Sin, and maybe even a few others, right? Has chosen Trump to build the temple. So the question becomes, what temple? Temple for what? All right. Chosen Trump to build a temple in dedication to Tammuz. So who is Tammuz?
Who is Tammuz?
All right. So those become the questions that we have to ask ourselves. So we've established that Trump has been chosen by God, but we've cleared it up. And if God is not a mystical being in the sky who said, Trump,
you do it.
Do my works.
Do my divine works. Only you can do it.
It's a specific member of the Anunnaki by the name of Nannar. All right. So the first question, who is Nannar? I always want to point people to books first and not just give them the answer so that you can read for yourself. Okay. We have a book called Pargadad Shalel Nawabu Nadar, right? Which translates to the God of light and fire. Read
which
that book.
We have referenced before.
Which we've referenced before.
But read that book.
Read that book. In that book.
I think we even read excerpts of it previously.
Yes, we did.
Of what's to come.
Yes, we did, because that book goes into predictions about what we're seeing right now. It's in that book that he told us a new virus was coming, right? It's in that book that he told us about the various natural disasters that we're seeing. We've recently seen floods in Spain, right? Severe floods in Spain.
Severe flooding.
Where they got a year's worth of rain in a day, right? That's Noah's Ark. So,
that's some biblical stuff.
Yeah,
if you've ever seen it.
Just no one told them to. There was no warning this time.
Yeah, no one said take 2 of everything.
God was impatient. He was just like floods, right? So we've seen that, and obviously very tragic. A lot of people have passed away. We've seen that. The natural disasters. He speaks about that in the God of Light and Fire. He speaks about the wars that we're seeing, nation rising up against nation. So we would have read a certain quotes from that book in pertinence. That are pertinent in terms of what's happening today. In that book, he also explains who Nannar is. So I would read that book. I would read another book called Factology of Time, which is a Master Secret scroll. And I would also read, those are the 2 that I would read in conjunction to find out who Nannar is in the sense of what he's done on this planet. We're talking about a specific extraterrestrial that's come back and forth to the planet and done certain things, which I'll go into in a moment. And also, if you can read a Master Secret scroll called the Annunaki.
Yeah.
The Annunaki scroll is going to give you the lineage. It's going to give you who these beings are, who their parents are, so on and so forth, who begat who, basically.
Yeah, all of that. And Master Secrets, they're smaller books, so more easy and digestible to get through.
Yes.
When we're talking about God of Light and Fire, it's a bit thicker, but so much information in there.
Exactly. So God of Light and Fire is a bit of a longer read that you can sit down and get your hands on. If you want more specifics in terms of Nannar and his works on the planet, Factology of Time gets very specific very quickly. It just tells you, this is what he's done. The Anunnaki is very specific. There's a few different things spoken about, but the context of what I'm explaining here, he speaks about the lineage, right? Who begat who. So when you're dealing with the Anunnaki, we should know that Anu is the most high in the Sumerian doctrine, so to speak. Hence Annunaki, which those sent to earth by Anu, right? So he's the most high. When you're dealing with religious stories, we always spoke about how you have 2 main voices that you'll find throughout these scriptures if you know what you're looking for. Those are the 2 voices of Anu's 2 sons, Enki and Enlil, right? Enki is considered more agreeable to us of the African seed because he came in, he mixed in with Africans, and he's considered more of a scientist. Enlil is considered more disagreeable to us as the African seed. He is more connected with religion, so to speak, and has a more religious way of doing things. Nannar is Enlil's son, right? So the God of light and fire is literally Nannar. That's what his name means. Nannar, Nannar, the master of light or the master of fire. Nar or Nawar or Nawal is an ancient tone for light, right? Even in our language, Nawar means light, right? Nara means fire. So when you go back into ancient languages, the tone for light and fire was the same because essentially they were the same thing. So what Baba Yaanuwn explains is that Nannar is Enlil's son, all right? And Nannar has come to the planet at various points in time in order to achieve certain things. If you go into biblical text, anytime you're dealing with God appearing as fire or light, whether it's the bush of fire to Moses, whether it's coming down as the fallen star Lucifer in Isaiah, where it speaks about how art thou has fallen from heavens, the morning star. Whether you're talking, even Jesus refers to himself as the morning, as the light of the morning, or the morning light, or the morning star, if that makes sense. When you're dealing with these quotes, another one is 2 Corinthians, I think it's 11:14, which speaks of, ironically, of Satan presenting himself or being disguised as the angel of light, right? All these different references, when you go through the Bible, the master Baba Yaanuwn has explained, these are references to a specific being, okay, called Nannar, right, who is the god of light and fire. Now, this being is an individual, okay, who comes in his craft and leaves in his craft, all right? It's an extraterrestrial being. So we need to get, we're speaking about in a religious context, but we need to get away from the spookism often associated with religion, right? I'm not dealing with almighties, all powerfuls. We're dealing with specific extraterrestrial off-world beings who may be more advanced, yes, than humanoids, a lot more advanced, but are not all powerful gods. As you can see when you read the Bible and you actually see how these beings are behaving, you say, well, that's not an all powerful being. We can see this being came and went. He's not everywhere all the time. He's coming and going.
Well, we always use the example of, say, or I got a mobile phone in my hand. Say I was transported way back, centuries back. If I was able to present this technology, they might view me as a god.
Yeah.
So we're just dealing with beings who are more advanced.
Exactly that. You'd be God to them, right? First person, go back in time and give them a lighter.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, how's he generating that fire? Magic. Or witchcraft. You better be careful how you present yourself. They might hang you. So you just be careful how you present yourself. But they're going to look at it as something like, what's that? Right? So that's who Nannar is. So what it explains in both the God of Light and Fire book and the Factology of Time is that Nannar is responsible for certain things that you can read about through these religious scriptures, right? When you go back to 610 BCE, this is a moment when Nannar left the planet, okay? Baba Yaanuwn explained he left the planet. He was on the planet. He left the planet in 610 BCE and came back in 610 AD, which is a significant date. Those of us in Islam, those of you in Islam, because I'm not in Islam.
I was like, well, did he convert just now?
Did we just become Muslim?
Did we? Who's we, first of all?
Yeah.
I didn't say anything.
My bad. Now, those of you in Islam know that 610 AD is a significant date. We'll get onto that in a moment. Right? So what Baba Yaanuwn has told us, 610 BCE, I mentioned the story of the Tower of Babel, right?
Right.
We know that if you go back to the video where we broke it down, we know the story of the Tower of Babel was about Nimrod changing the tone and frequency of the people. He taught the people a different language. So when you talk about that tower to the heavens, that was symbolic of connecting these people by way of their language, their tone, their frequency, with a different set of gods or watchers or angels, whatever term you want to use, okay? So the Anunnaki were in control of the people. When Nimrod taught them Sabbatic or a Sabaean language, as we speak, Mispatia, Napatan, Moro, these tones, he took the people off the Annunaki frequency and put them on the frequency of the Netiru or Panatharu, as we say. All right. So this connected the people with a different set of gods, the original beings that came to the planet and seeded the original seed on the planet, which is the African seed. Right. Nannar and Enlil, that being they were of that particular side of the Anunnaki. Nimrod was actually working with Enki when he did what he did. Nannar and Enlil were obviously upset by this. They lost control of the people, right? So Nannar leaves the planet. 610 BCE, leaves the planet.
And a half.
Yeah, he's sulking. He flies off like, this ain't right. He flies off like, this ain't right. Comes back around 1200 years later, 610 AD, right? People in the Muslim world know this is the year which speaks of Muhammad really beginning his mission. Sorry. So this is the year where Islam arrived, right? Baba Yaanuwn explained that was Nannar, right? So Nannar and Enlil lost control of the people because they were put on a different tone. They lost control of the people for about 1,200 years, right? Came back 1,200 years later, like, we got something new.
Got it
in the bag.
Imagine being in a huff for 1,200 years.
That's a long time,
planning, like, all right, I got it now.
Yeah, got it now.
So these beings are on different levels.
It's a different level. It's a different level of operation. So come back 1,200 years later and gives or sends Gabar-El or the angel Gabriel to give Muhammad the Quran or give Muhammad Islam. Hence, that date, 610 AD, is known as the date where Islam essentially begins, or the mission of Muhammad has begun. That was Nannar. He specifically came back with the new version of it. It's remixed. I know if you're Muslim, it might hurt, but listen, Islam is remixed Christianity. There are various, go into the books and tell me that there are various stories which are identical almost in those two books, right? The three Abrahamic religions are just that, the three Abrahamic religions. They're all serving the same God, whether you know it or not, right? So Nannar comes back with this remixed form of religion called Islam, right? And that works in terms of casting another spell on the people, gaining control of the people again that they had lost in 610 BCE when Nimrod did what he did, right? So that's a time when Nannar came. Nannar also came in 1966. Anytime you hear 6 next to another 6, you know it ain't good.
Yeah.
You know it ain't good.
You know something going down.
Something devilish is taking place, right? So and it's interesting enough, I explained that when you go to Corinthians, it speaks about Satan presenting himself as an angel of light, and that being Nannar also. So 66, he comes, learn the story of Rosemary's baby and the devil and all of that. That's what he was here in 66 for. Leaves again, comes back in 99, right? In 1999, okay? Leaves again. Every time he comes, death increases. Leaves again. Comes back in 2011, 2012-ish, right? And I think left in around 2015, right?
Yeah, as far as I think I remember that time period.
And so Baba would have been explaining, yeah, and I was on the planet right now, you know? And we're like, where's he at? Where's he? You better stay away from here. I want him close. So
start saying extra chance to be protected.
To be protected. Like, yay, Nataru, please. And so Nannar was on the planet 2011, 2012. You go back, you see various reports of lights being seen, particularly in Israel. You want to look for reports around that period of lights being seen in Israel. Okay, because he came back to check on certain things, right? Which pertain to the instructions that which pertain to him choosing Trump to build a particular temple, right? So he comes back, he leaves in 2015. I don't know if he's been back again, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing, but that's the last we heard of it as far as the updates.
That was when Obama saw him off.
That's right.
He was in power.
He was been in power at that time. So I think Obama's presidency ended in 2016, if I'm correct, right?
Sounds about right.
And Trump would have taken over, had his 4 years until 2020, and then Biden would have had his 4 years until right now.
Yeah, where we are now.
Until where we are now, where Trump's again. So, yes, Obama would have had to see Nannar off on that particular occasion. And various things happened during Nannar's visit. When you go back to certain things that happen in Saudi Arabia, which maybe we can pull up on a different video, and why certain things were triggered, certain tragedies, and a certain rise in the amount of deaths that we were seeing on the planet was all pertaining to the fact that Nannar was here. Okay, and left in 2015. So he's been responsible for various things. This is a particular being. His lineage is obviously he is the grandchild of Anu, but he's the son of Enlil, and he's of that particular side of things. And he has a lot to do with what we've seen happen with religion and the different ways that they've attempted to control the planet by way of religion, which is really a religion or a scripture that came essentially for the Adamites, which are a particular group of people. Okay, so this branch of this planet's story does not relate to us as Africans, right? But we have been pulled into it because we are in their religions, right? We are Christians, we are Muslims, we are Jews, right? We've been pulled into it by way of their religions, but it was never for us, and we were never supposed to be subject to what that particular area is subject to. But that's Nannar. That's some of what he's done, right? And read about him in the Bible and the Quran, right? And just know what you're reading. When you see references to light, whether it's the 93rd attribute of Allah or whether it's the son of the morning in the Bible, you're talking about a particular being, and that being is Nannar. Okay, so he's come and he's gone, and he's come and he's gone, and he's caused a lot of chaos, right? As light is. Baba Yaanuwn's explained, light is chaos, right? As soon as you say, let there be light, as God said, interestingly enough, what was he talking about when he said, let there be light? But when you say that term, you're giving birth to chaos, right? Mm-hmm. Darkness is peace and calm. And that's what we return to. We are a physical representation of darkness as the African seed, right? Our opposites are a physical representation of light, which is chaos. And that's just the reality. So you have Nannar, right? He says he appoints Trump to build the temple. What's the temple? The temple is the Temple of Solomon, right?
Right.
Do your biblical research, you'll understand. Solomon was a king in the Bible. We're not going to dive all the way into him, but he was a king in the Bible, considered wise. I think he's son of David, right? And he was a ruler of Israel at a particular time and responsible for building the first version of this Temple of Solomon, right? The Temple of Solomon is essentially the central worship when it's erected, so to speak, is the central worshiping point of the Israelites or the Israeli people, right? This is where their rituals take place. This is where their sacrifices take place. Sacrifice and ritual is an integral part of these modern day religions, as you see if you read the books and you read them properly. No matter what, they'll come round and say, no, we're people of peace. The book says differently, right? Sacrifice, I'm talking about blood sacrifices, okay? But this is a central part of their religion and always has been. And so when you're talking about erecting this Temple of Solomon, you're talking about building that central place again for the Israeli people to have for their worship, for their ritual, for their sacrifices. Now, that temple is to be erected, which is why we see the chaos that's going on the planet today. And so that's what you have Nannar, who's told Trump, listen, you got 7 years to build the temple. What's interesting is it 7 years whilst he's in power, because if so, he's got like pretty
much four-ish left.
3-4-ish left, right? Okay. And so you have that. So do your research on Solomon. It's easier to find information on Solomon in the biblical context. So you had King Solomon, the temple. The temple has actually been built and destroyed twice. It was built by King Solomon, the original one. I think the Babylonians destroyed it when they conquered. I think it was rebuilt again, and I think the Romans destroyed it when they conquered. So when you go to in the context of biblical narrative or explanation or biblical scripture, this will be the third time. If it is to be erected again, if it is to be built again, this will be the third time. That's the Temple of Solomon. Tammuz, built in dedication for Tammuz. Tammuz is an interesting being, again, a member of the Annunaki, or of the lineage of the Anunnaki. But the reason I say he's an interesting being is his lineage, he has both sides in him, in the sense that you have Enki and Enlil, and he has lineage leading back to Enlil and lineage leading back to Enki also. He's actually, Tammuz is actually Nannar's grandchild, and as his mother is Nannar's daughter, okay? But Tammuz's father is Dumuzi, who is Enki's son. So when Baba Yaanuwn's spoken about Tammuz in the past, he's always said, I remember a particular update he put out. He said, yeah, Nannar came to check, at a particular point, came to check if the temple had been erected yet. And the temple was for Tammuz. And then at the end of that particular update, he would have said, but whose side is he on? And he just phrased it as a question, and that particular paragraph ended. And I was like, whoa, wait, Baba.
Wait, more.
Whose side is he on?
It's interesting, though. So he has lineage both linking to Enlil and Enki.
Yes.
So he could be changeable in nature.
Yes, he could be changeable in nature. And a lot of this is all about decisions you make. It's interesting when you speak, not to stay too far deep into religion, but we spoke of, and when you speak of Nannar and his tone being Sin, Zuen, Zion, look in the Bible for a reference to Zion. Maybe we'll throw out the quote. It will say something along the lines of fire was in Zion. Essentially, it's telling you that fire and Zion are the same thing, and that's Nannar. Nannar is fire, and one of his tones is Zion. But if you go into Genesis, I think it's Genesis 4:7, but I could be wrong. It's that quote about where it's directed towards Cain, and essentially it said, if you do well, you'll be okay. But if you don't do well, then sin will be waiting at the door for you, right? Obviously, the normal mind interprets that as, oh, he's talking about sin. He's talking about sinning. If you don't do well, then now you're going to be a sinner. Baba Yaanuwn explained that, no. sin meant Nannar. Sin is another tone for Nannar. That was actually Enki warning Cain that if you go down a particular path, you'll be under Nannar's rule for your lifespan. Okay? When you look into the lineage of Cain, he's actually Nannar's child. Right? He's not Adam's child. You go into the quote in the Bible, which again we'll put it up. It says something along the lines of, and Adam said, "I've received the son from the Lord," and people interpret that as, oh yeah, the God literally came down and impregnated your woman, and Cain is not Adam's son, not directly like that anyway. Cain is Nannar's son and Nannar's child, but Cain had a choice. He could have been of a better nature or not, and Enki tried to take him down a better path and say, hey, listen, don't do that. Nannar's trying to trick you. Don't do that. Don't kill your brother. We can be different, but Cain killed his brother, and then hence he was by nature just like his father. Nannar, who was
like sin.
Yes, became like sin. Okay, and became a killer.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Like, even when you get into language, the whole idea of perhaps where the terms to be a sinner originates from. Mm-hmm. And just to circle back on Nannar's tones being Zuen or Zion, I'd put a pin in that, because Zion is a term you hear a lot, especially in Black conscious culture. That idea of a safe haven. Right. Remember Zion in Matrix, even that idea of the safe haven.
Right.
But maybe not. Yeah. When you delve into the stories more, you're talking about Nannar.
You're talking about Nannar.
Certainly wouldn't be a safe haven for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very deep when you go into the layers of that, because you mentioned Matrix there and Zion being the safe haven. When you actually look into, as the story develops in Matrix, for those of us who are Matrix fans, you realize that Zion was another plan of the machines, right? It appeared as a safe haven originally.
I didn't even think of that.
Yes, but it was another, if you break down the story of Matrix, it was actually another part of the overall structure of control. Zion needed to be built, needed to exist for the machines to maintain control, because if you remember, if things weren't a certain way, the humans kept rebelling, even though they were in the Matrix. They kept rebelling like, nah, this ain't right. So they needed to have those who seek freedom, right? Those who build Zion, right? And think that they're free, when really you're another part of the whole machine of control. That human beings, in order to be controlled, need to think that they have either freedom or have a chance at freedom or have a fight for freedom, if that makes sense. And that whole story, I think Baba Yaanuwn actually said that particular story was inspired by Parnatharu. It was written by a Black woman.
Yeah, because maybe that was in an update while we were going through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have said the ancestors of Parnatharu inspired the Black lady who wrote the original story to get the information to us.
Yes, exactly.
And when two concepts came from that story, you got Terminator and Matrix. When you watch those movies and piece them together, it really is the story of religion, in a sense. Even the fact, because I remember watching an interview of the Black woman, I think her name was Sophia Stewart, breaking it down. You have the savior figure in Terminator, John Connor, JC, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a deep story. It's a deep story, and like you said, when you understand that our ancestors inspired it, and that obviously wasn't the Wachowski brothers, sisters, whatever they are now. It wasn't them who are the originators of that particular story. It was the one of our people, Sophia Stewart.
Yeah,
said.
I do.
And the story was inspired by Parnatharu, and that speaks to the layers of the spell. That whole story, when you actually dive and watch Matrix 1, 2, and 3 again, it's layers of a spell. It's all layers of control, which has a direct reflection on reality and how we see all these layers of control. That every time you think you've broken out the spell, you're just in a different form of the same spell. You thought that when you left Christianity and went to Islam, you were out the spell. You're just in a different layer of the spell. You thought when you left Islam and went to something conscious, you were out the spell. It's just another layer of the spell. There are so many layers of control that have been designed by these extraterrestrials who know what they're doing, that the only true way to win, so to speak, will be to connect with the extraterrestrials that are responsible for us. And adhere to that. I say adhere, and to, ascend to that level of vibration, if that makes sense. But that's what it means. So that Zion, yes, you're correct.
Yeah,
Zion is used as a conscious term. We think as a conscious term. It's another term for Nannar, who is this God of light and fire, this being who's responsible for subjugating our people to a lot of the mess that we're in today, if that makes sense. So Nannar telling Trump, you got 7 years, build the Temple of Solomon for Tammuz. Tammuz being my grandchild, but Tammuz is an interesting one. We got to see how that plays out. He could describe him as a neutral being. That's what you could describe him as, a neutral being, because he has both lineages in him. And so that's what we see Trump has been asked to do. That's why his re-election was inevitable in some sense, because he's been chosen again, not chosen again, but he's been given another chance to complete his works. And those works specifically center around the building of the Temple of Solomon. Okay.
In Jerusalem, which in Jerusalem, which would take us on to Israel and Palestine and what's going on there.
Right.
Just side note, if I was Trump, I'd be like, can you start the 7 years again?
Yeah.
I had interruptions.
Yeah, I had an interruption. You got to reset this. I can't
reset the clock.
Pick up my work.
Reset the clock.
Yeah, but Trump, he's gotten started already. He's appointed Elon Musk and Vivek to run a particular initiative to try and clean up the government. He's got started. He's not wasting any time. He's like, oh snap, I ain't got much time.
He's not even in office yet.
I need to get this done, right? So you mentioned Israel and Palestine. If you go back to the episode that we did on Israel and Palestine, episode 24, I explained the whole history of Israel and Palestine. If you want to read it
eloquently, if I might add.
Don't flatter me. Don't. I'm melanated, but I might blush. Don't flatter me. All right. Yeah. So I explained the whole history of Israel and Palestine, going back to maybe the origination of the Zionist movement. Zionist. We see the tone again. Zionist.
Exactly.
Those of Zion. Right. So we explained that. We would have also mentioned in that episode that Trump, one of the things he tried to do in his previous reign was he came with some type of peace proposal for Israel and Palestine. Right. But the proposal clearly lent towards Israel, because the Israeli people were happy with it, but the Arabs were not happy with it. Okay, We've seen even recently, you sent me the article recently, just as he's become elected, of him and what's the Israelis' leader's name? Netanyahu. Him and Netanyahu. Yeah, we see eye to eye on what needs to be done in Iran. Yeah, of course they see eye to eye.
Of course.
Okay, so what we explained in that episode 24, is that the reason that the Israeli people have invaded Palestine, or the reason that war is going on, so to speak, between the European Jews and the Muslim Arabs, right, is because the European Jews, or the Israeli people, want to take back their holy land. And this was another update that the master put out. And you got to go different places, find these different pieces of the puzzle. In another update, he explained that the reason that they're doing what they're doing is because they want to take back their holy land so they can build their temple to prepare for the return of their Messiah. Okay, so that was an update that was put out. So the Israeli people, when Trump and Netanyahu see eye to eye, they see eye to eye. Okay, they don't for a second think that these people don't have a clear understanding of what's going on. Trump knows what's going on. He may speak of God in a religious context. He knows who God is. He knows what he's supposed to do. He's had contact with this Nannar being. So you have to understand that. So the Israeli people or the Israel warring against Palestine is all about Holy Land. It's all about that land, to take it back, because when you build a temple, you have to build it in a specific place, right? And so they want to take back the land in order to build the temple. And we know that Trump has been tasked with overseeing the building of that temple. So what you have to do from that perspective is watch Trump's movements as it pertains to the Israel-Palestine war. Now, when you read The God of Light and Fire, this is why I urge people to read this book. Baba Yaanuwn breaks it all down in terms of not only what's happening now, but what's going to happen and what's going to continue to happen. So the Israelites are invading Palestine. They're killing, they're murdering babies, they're bombing stuff. They're trying to clear the land. Baba said it's going to be comparable to what you see going on in what Russia are doing to Ukraine. You're going to see the Israelites or the Israel people do it to the Palestinian people. What he explained is that this war between the Europeans and the Arabs, he's predicted it in so many different forms for so long, right? If you go to even the Revelations, the Bible, it explains certain things, and certain things are predicted. And Baba Yaanuwn breaks down what it means, right? So in Revelations, it first speaks of the fifth trumpet. You have the 7 trumpets, right? The fifth trumpet of Revelations, we'll throw it up on the screen, speaks of essentially the atomic bomb, which 1945, right? The atomic bomb in Revelations, the fifth trumpet is a star falling out of the sky and creating a cloud of dust, something to that effect. And when you see the atomic bomb falling out of the sky, creating that mushroom cloud of dust, right? And so what was explained, first of all, from that perspective, what you need to understand is that the Mongoloids, or the Asian people, in terms of the Chinese, Japanese, so on and so
Orientals.
forth. The Orientals, that's the term I'm looking for. They are not going to forget that one.
You're not going to forget that.
They are not going to forget that one. Remember how devastating that atomic bomb was, not only to the people who experienced it, but to the descendants of those who experienced it. Messed up a people for generations, right? Babies being born deformed and so on and so forth. So they're not going to forget that one. So what is explained in the God of Light and Fire is that this war, the 6th trumpet, speaks of the 4, it might be the 4 angels, or it might be the 4 angels of the Euphorites arriving and sending out their army of 200 million to wipe out a third of humanity. What Baba Yaanuwn spoke about is, he said those 4 angels spoken about, and we'll get the exact quote up on the screen, in the 6th trumpet, is actually the 4 sections of the Islam nations: Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan and Pakistan, right? Those 4 are going to come together in order to war against the West, right? We're seeing the beginnings of that already, because Iran is very much involved in this war when you look at what's going on, right? So it's explained, this is predicted. They're going to war against them. What's going to happen is that as that war continues, the West is going to get weaker and weaker. It's already getting weaker in different forms. It's going to get weaker and weaker. When they're on their knees, that's when China are going to say, all right, this is our moment. This is our time. And they're going to unite with Russia in order to go and finish the job, so to speak, or destroy New Babylon and bring it to an end. It's already at its end. We explained that the year that the rule ended was 2000 or 2003. So everything we've seen since then is just pieces of this empire falling away. We spoke about this. Go back and watch the Fall of the West episode. We spoke about the birth rates. We spoke about the currency. We spoke about all these different forms that the West appears to be falling. We spoke about viruses. We spoke about the wars that are ensuing.
We spoke about natural disasters.
We spoke about natural disasters, right? So what Baba Yaanuwn explains in the God of Light and Fire is that you're just going to see European country after European country go bankrupt, right? Not only that, we also have given various reports and updates on what's happening in Africa and how that pertains to Europe, and certain Europeans being told you need to leave, right? France being told get out of Niger, right? All of this pertains to what we're seeing, because their way of life is very much dependent on Africa, is it not? Their so-called riches are dependent on Africa.
Yeah, very much so. Mm-hmm. Very much so. They built themselves off the back of Africa.
Exactly.
When you talk about there being this huge military base in Niger that they've been asked to leave, well, that's part of your military strategies, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So we understand their way of life has been dependent on us as Africans, so to speak, or on abusing us as Africans. And so when they lose that, suddenly the country don't seem that rich anymore. A lot of their so-called riches, when you talk about the West, are African, and they've stolen, they've taken, absorbed, and so on and so forth. So this all is inevitable. The Americans supporting Israel will fight against these Arab nations. They're trying to erect their temple for Nannar, that temple for the return of their Messiah. That's all inevitable. The war that is happening between them is all inevitable. We said it in that episode. We don't want war. I'm not there like, yeah, war. We don't. But war is inevitable. And the Third World War, which pertains to this empire, this New Babylon empire, is inevitable. Mm-hmm. In some ways, it has already begun. But if you want to wait for it to be officially declared a world war, so be it. But in some ways, it has already begun. And China, and alongside Russia, will do what Baba has promised they will do, and be the last sort of,
The bear and the dragon will strike down the eagle.
Will strike down the eagle. And that last jab, and when America's on its knees, that's when they'll swoop in like, kapow, you're done here. And so read that book, because when you're dealing with the predictions, A lot of them are in that book, The God of Light and Fire. But yes, this all connects to Israel. You have to watch how Trump behaves as regards to the Israel-Iran war, okay, and everything that's developing there, because he knows he has to build the temple. He has no choice. I advise any Sabians to just go back and read over the updates from the last decade, and every time he's mentioned Nannar or Zuwen or Sin, and realize that he's been saying this for quite some time.
He's been saying this for quite a while. The man may know what he's talking about.
He might just. He might just. And so you have to accept that, he's the one who knows. He's the one on the planet right now who knows. And they know that. And so we should never ever have any doubt of that, because he's proven himself over and over again.
Right does he have to be to prove his divinity?
There you go. So that's what the Israel-Palestine war has to do with it. They're trying to build their temple. They're trying to return. It's all about trying to get their overlords to stay. Anytime you see an increase in death and blood, they're trying to attract their overlords. Their gods are gods of blood. It's in the Bible again. There's a lot of mention of blood and sacrifice and killings and death, and God seems very happy about this. He's not someone who's displeased by death. He enjoys it. He partakes in it. Sometimes he's the one doing all of it. And so the interesting point I'd make just as well on the Israel-Palestine situation, most Christians who I speak to will all agree it's wrong what Israel are doing, right? They're murdering women and children. I think we saw a statistic the other day where 70% of people who have died since this invasion began have been women and children, right? They all agree that it's wrong what Israel are doing. But when you go to the Bible, God tells them to do it. Precisely, not in disguise. God literally tells them, go to 1 Samuel's, read Deuteronomy. God literally tells them, hey, listen, anyone who don't worship me, go over there, kill them. Kill the men, kill the women, kill the children too, on some Anakin vibes. Just kill them all.
On some madness.
Kill the animals, kill the cattle. What the animals do?
The animals? Wait a minute.
What the animals do?
They didn't even say anything.
They didn't say
anything.
Know
who they worship.
They was eating grass. That's what they was
doing. Kill
them
Arab cows.
Yeah,
okay?
kill the Arab cows. Arab cows didn't declare that they like they follow a particular god or don't. Kill the animals too. It's in the book. I'm not misquoting it. We'll put the quote up. I'm not misquoting it. So in your very book, God is telling the Israelites to go over there and do exactly what Israel are doing right now. Israel can very easily, not at a stretch, very easily justify their every action by way of the Bible, by way of the holy book. So the question you have to ask yourself is this book so holy, right? You have to start acknowledging and reading this book in its correct context, because I didn't make it up. I didn't throw those quotes in there. The quotes are in there. They're literally in there, where God's like, literally, yeah, go over there, kill them all. Okay, anyone who doesn't worship me, kill them. I don't care if it's your brother, your mother, your son, any issue, just kill them. Right? This is fact. And so you have to ask yourself.
Makes you have to ask. You really have to ask. Is it a holy book? Or is it a book of sin? See what I did there?
Yeah, I saw that. See, a little bit too happy about that one. But yeah, I see that. Exactly. But exactly that. And so one thing we got to get into, we've really only touched upon it today. But there's so many occasions in the Bible where you have to read the quotes. And when you read the quotes, you'll say, oh, snap. What does that mean? And Baba Yaanuwn is telling you what it means. And so, yeah, that's just one it's easily researchable. Go Google what God is telling the Israelites to go and do to other nations that he considers not of him. It's not minced. The words aren't minced. It's very clear. It's not disguised. It's not even in that much Shakespearean language. Oh, dart out, dart. He just said, look, go over there, kill them. And that's the God you worship.
Madness.
So everything that the Israeli government are doing right now can be justified by way of scripture. So if you follow that scripture, you have to ask yourself why you follow such a scripture that can so easily justify what you yourself would describe as a genocide. All right? Not justify it at a stretch, easily justify it. So yeah, that's what I put out there. But that's what that's what that all has to deal with. It's all religious context. And every time we say something has a religious context to it, what we're saying is that it is part of an extraterrestrial agenda, because the gods of these religions are extraterrestrials posing as gods or posing as God. And that can be easily demonstrated if you go back and read these books in their original language and compare them to tablets which we know predate them. right? Such as the Sumerian tablets, okay? So yeah, I hope that provides some type of answer to what's going on.
Now, the pieces of the puzzle are definitely coming together. And Bubba's laid it all out for us. So we should know what we need to do.
We should
look and observe what's going on and be like, right, okay, so what do we need to do?
We should know.
Because we don't need to be up in all of this.
We don't need to be up in all of that, but we're involved. Baba Yaanuwn, even the God of Light and Fire, again, he says, listen, give up all their stuff. Otherwise, you'll be under Nannar's rule, so to speak. You know, when he comes back and returns, there's supposed to be a situation where he cannot touch us because we're of a certain vibration. And he's like, no, okay, I got to leave those guys alone. But if you are still in his religions and under his tones, under his names, under his way of life, he'd be like, well, yeah, that's mine. That's mine. They're adhering to me. That's mine. Yeah, we do have to ask ourselves, what are we supposed to be doing right now in the midst of all this chaos? I don't know that we know it. We should know it, but I don't know that we do.
It's deep. Deep, what can I say? What can I say? We're definitely going to have to do some follow-up on this particular topic.
Most definitely.
And just see how it unfolds.
Yeah. We need some part 2, part 3, part 4 type stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. We're going to let everyone absorb that. We had to come back. We had to come back with the fire. We'll come back with the pieces of the puzzle.
There's so much more.
So much more.
There is so much more. We're just getting started. There is so much more to what's going on. Remember, what you see is less than half the picture. What you see going on in the political landscape, you're seeing all these battles, you're seeing all this, it is less than half the picture. Okay? Don't think that these people in positions don't know what's really going on. Most of what you see is a performance, okay? What's gonna happen is gonna happen however it happens. So you're watching the race, you're watching the elections, it seems like it's tight. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. It's just how it happens. So keep that in mind. What you see on the screen is less, maybe much less than half the picture. But you can start aiding your picture if you start accepting what religion is and the origins of religion. You can get a bit more of the picture if you start accepting that. If you're going to be lost in it and still think, I'm going to pray to this so-called God who's watching as people die left, right, and center on the planet. If you continue with that, then yeah, you're going to continue being ignorant, which is what they want. Okay, but if you start accepting certain realities and go back through, whether it's through Baba's books, whether it's through all the different videos we put out on this podcast, go back through them and see the realities, then you'll elevate yourself and give yourself a chance in this crazy world. It's a mad one.
Yeah, we are in some interesting times. But yeah, let's leave that to marinate. I would like to thank everyone for listening.
I'll second that.
If you haven't already subscribed, turn on the notification bell so you can be sure to know when we post new videos. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and on audio podcast platforms if you're an audio listener. But sometimes audio is good for on the go, but sometimes you need the visual. Yeah. Especially for the quotes coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, we will be back very soon.
We will.
Very soon.
We will.
Why are you smiling like
we'll be back. Yeah. We're always here.
We're
always here. All right? We're just doing our jobs. That's all. Just doing our jobs.
Just going through life for us, yeah. But until then, farewell. Wadu.
Farewell and wadu.